Hello everyone, welcome to another painting video. Today I wanted to talk about something which I've been thinking about for a while now. Back when I was in high school, I discovered the works of the artist David Shepherd, who was an absolutely brilliant wildlife painter, and his work served as my inspiration for starting my own artistic journey. At the time, from just looking at pictures of his art, I thought that his paintings were so lifelike and realistic. And so this was what I also desired to achieve. Looking at Shepherd's work now, I've realized that his style was actually a lot looser than I first thought, and quite impressionistic. What made his art so great wasn't so much the detail, but rather his ability at conveying the mood and atmosphere of a specific scene. I just couldn't see it at the time because I hadn't developed a critical eye at that point. So this was always my end goal, to try and get as realistic as I could. I didn't have the means to take my own references, so I used to go on free stock image websites like Pixabay and use the photos on there for my art. I would try and copy them so exactly that I'd be zooming so far into the picture and then using these tiny brushes to get down every detail I could see. While this method isn't necessarily a bad thing, I did find that it came with a cost for me. The problem I had was that this was all I would ever do, and I worked like this for a couple of years, and all I was doing was copying someone else's creativity. I had very limited imagination when it comes to creating new art, and because I'd been so fixed on copying these reference photos exactly, that is exactly the skill which I developed. I'd essentially become a photocopier. I hadn't ever practiced and developed my own creative imagination, so I had very few ideas for new art and compositions. And this was a very depressing realization for me, after being so invested in this craft, putting in many hours of work. I didn't have anything to show for it. There was nothing that was really mine about any of the work that I had done. Now, it wasn't all bad news. It did have some benefits, and that was that I had learned and developed many technical painting and drawing techniques. For example, I had learned how to draw accurately and how to layer the paint to get the look and texture I was after. I had also learned a lot about color, and my use of color is something that I now consider to be one of my trademarks. Now, I want to be clear that I don't consider working from photos to be a bad thing. In fact, I use photos in all my work, and to paint in the realist style, I would argue that it is essential. The distinction is in the way you use them. The problem was that I was using someone else's photo and copying it exactly, so I was developing my technical skills without focusing on the creative side of art, and I believe you need to practice both to be a well-rounded artist. I also don't have a problem with isolating one aspect of painting, as I used to do, and just doing a couple of studies practicing that, so long as it's not the only thing you do, and you balance that out with practicing the other elements. I've thought quite a bit about how I think photos should be used in art, and definitely the first thing I would encourage you to do is to use photos that you have taken yourself. That way, you don't need to worry about any copyright issues, and you are already thinking about composition and lighting, making judgments about what's good and what's not. You'll also improve at that the more you do as well, becoming a better photographer. But I understand it might not always be possible depending on your circumstances. It was certainly not possible for me when I started. So that leads me on to the second point, and that is to ask yourself, what are you trying to convey here? What is the focus and what draws you to this particular subject or scene? By asking yourself these questions, you'll be developing a critical mind in terms of composition, and you'll be able to pick out key aspects that you may want to enhance or emphasize. Whether you're using your own reference photos or someone else's, it's important to remember what they actually are, and that is references, so they should be used as just that, and not a rigid stencil that you must follow. Something that I always like to do is to enhance the colours, especially of the subject or focal point. As I mentioned, that is one of my trademarks. I like to create art that is bright and colourful, so that is a way that I change and manipulate my references. You may like to manipulate the scale of a specific object to emphasize that particular component, or move something to another area in the painting to make that part more interesting. Honestly, there are so many ways for you to put your own stamp on it if you have the mind to do so. If you're taking your own reference photos, my third recommendation would be to take multiple reference photos of your chosen scene. That way you can mix and match and take the best parts of each photo to combine them into an engaging composition. This is why the design part of the process is so crucial, just doing quick and small sketches, because it enables you to try out different compositions without ever getting too committed into a single one. Now obviously this mainly applies to paintings of an actual scene. It's a little different when painting portraits, whether that's of an animal or a person, and in these instances it's not uncommon to just use one photo. In my work, developing my creative imagination is something that I'm still practicing, and it's got a long way to go. Just remember that anyone can learn technique, but it's your creative vision that is going to separate you from other artists and make your work uniquely yours. And this is also what galleries and collectors look for in an artist. They look for that distinction and creative touch. Everyone, thank you for watching, and I hope you got something out of this. If you're an inspiring artist yourself and would like to learn oil painting, you can check out my beginner's course, which I've released on Skillshare. It will take you from not knowing anything at all the way to painting your first work. It will be the first link in the description, and for those who are not already a Skillshare member, my link will give you a 14-day free trial. Have a good day everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.